If you spend enough time at a playground, you will witness this exact sequence of events. A 2-year-old is sprinting across the rubber playground turf, loses their footing, and hits the ground hard. What happens next is the fascinating part. Instead of immediately bursting into tears, the child freezes. They sit up in total silence, quickly scan the play area, and lock eyes directly with their caregiver. It is easy to assume they are just disoriented, or waiting to see if an adult will rush over to physically pick them up. But around age 2, children reach a developmental milestone known in psychology as social referencing. In that frozen, silent moment, the toddler is not looking for physical comfort. They are actively trying to use your nervous system as an external hard drive to evaluate whether or not they are actually in danger. To understand why they need to do this, we have to look inside the toddler's head. At this age, they physically lack the internal hardware required to process uncertainty. They operate largely out of their downstairs brain. This is the primitive, instinctual center responsible for basic survival responses, like fight, flight, and raw threat detection. Meanwhile, their upstairs brain, the prefrontal cortex that handles logic, reasoning, and emotional regulation, is still heavily under construction. So when they scrape their knee, their body registers a sudden physical shock. But their brain cannot independently compute whether that physical shock is a minor tumble or a life-threatening emergency. Because their own logic processor is unfinished, they have to outsource the job. They temporarily borrow an adult's fully functioning brain to make sense of the physical sensation they are experiencing. This habit of seeking external data begins on the very first day of life. Developmental researchers refer to this as serve and return. It is a continuous back-and-forth interaction between an infant's signals, like a cry or a gesture, and a caregiver's response. Every time a baby makes eye contact or coos and an adult responds, synaptic pathways forge and strengthen in the child's developing brain architecture. By age 2, this basic interaction loop evolves into a highly sophisticated real-time mechanism for pulling data during moments of intense stress. That silent stare from the playground turf is actually a rapid, high-stakes information request built on thousands of hours of neurobiological testing. Which brings us back to that frozen moment after the fall. The physiological outcome for the child depends entirely on the visual feedback they receive. If the parent gasps or looks terrified, the child's downstairs brain immediately registers a severe threat, flooding their body with the stress hormone cortisol and triggering a full-scale meltdown. If the parent smiles warmly and projects safety, a completely different biological sequence takes over. The adult is effectively executing the logic processing inside their own mature upstairs brain and broadcasting the results outward. The child downloads this safe emotional data. Their nervous system receives the all clear. Their heart rate downregulates, and they usually brush themselves off to resume playing. A caregiver's immediate facial expression acts as the toggle that disengages a toddler's biological stress response. This split-second exchange determines the structural integrity of the child's nervous system. By maintaining a calm presence, the adult acts as a biological buffer, actively shielding the child's developing brain from the corrosive effects of toxic stress. Each time a child successfully references a safe adult and regulates their emotions, the brain takes note. A new, permanent neural pathway is cemented in their own upstairs brain. This chart shows the development of executive function skills from infancy into early adulthood. Notice the incredibly steep upward curve right here between ages 0 and 5. This is the window where the massive foundational growth of a child's cognitive control takes place. Through social referencing, parents are systematically transferring their own emotional software, installing the internal hardware the child will eventually use to regulate themselves. A moment of wonder. Think about what it feels like to lock eyes with a young child right after they take a spill. It is a brief, totally silent stare, but it carries immense biological gravity. The toddler is conducting a high-stakes investigation into the safety of their environment. By providing stable emotional data in those critical seconds, you are actively writing the neural code that will dictate their emotional resilience for the rest of their life.